The year was 2008. Flip phones were cool, and everyone was humming along to catchy pop songs. 16-year-old Emily loved it all. She had long, wavy brown hair, bright green eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a smile that could light up a room. She lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and life was usually pretty calm. Emily was a good student, not the best, but she always tried her hardest. Her favorite subject was art. She loved to draw and paint. Her bedroom walls were covered in her creations, colorful landscapes, portraits of her friends, and whimsical creatures from her imagination. She had two best friends, Sarah and Jessica. They were inseparable, spending hours talking on the phone, giggling over silly jokes, and dreaming about the future. Weekends were usually spent at the movies, the local pizza place, or, most excitingly, the mall. Today was Friday, and Emily was buzzing with excitement. School had been dragging all day, but the promise of a trip to the mall with Sarah and Jessica was enough to keep her going. They were planning to check out the new clothing store and maybe grab an ice cream cone. "See you later, Mom," Emily called out as she grabbed her backpack and headed out the door. "Have fun, sweetie. Be home before dark," her mom replied from the kitchen. Emily grinned and waved as she walked down the street toward the bus stop. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and everything felt perfect. She couldn't wait to tell Sarah and Jessica about the cute boy she'd seen in math class that morning. He had the kindest eyes and a shy smile, and Emily had been secretly crushing on him for weeks. But there was something else on Emily's mind, something she hadn't told her friends. A secret she had been keeping close to her heart. It wasn't a bad secret, not really, but it was something she wasn't quite ready to share. It involved an old, forgotten corner of the town, a place she'd stumbled upon a few weeks ago while exploring. A place that felt both exciting and a little bit scary. It was a place she planned to visit again, soon, a place that held a mystery she was determined to solve. A mystery that, unbeknownst to her, would change her life forever. Emily never made it to the mall that day. Sarah and Jessica waited for her at their usual meeting spot, right outside the bus stop. They checked their flip phones impatiently, thinking maybe she was running late. 15 minutes turned into 30, and a growing sense of unease began to creep in. Maybe she forgot, Jessica suggested, trying to sound optimistic, but Sarah shook her head. Emily would never forget, especially not about going to the mall, she said, her voice laced with worry. They decided to call Emily's house. Her mom answered, her voice cheerful at first. "Oh, hi, girls. Is Emily with you? She left for the bus stop a while ago." The cheerful tone vanished, replaced by a note of concern. "She's not there? That's strange." Hours passed, and Emily still hadn't arrived home. Her parents started to panic. They called the police, who initially dismissed it as a teenage runaway situation. But Mr. and Mrs. Carter knew their daughter. Emily wouldn't just run away. She loved her family, her friends, and her life. The police finally agreed to file a missing person report. The news spread through the small town like wildfire. Everyone was shocked and scared. How could a girl just disappear in broad daylight? Sarah and Jessica were devastated. They spent the evening with Emily's family, comforting each other and desperately hoping for good news. They replayed their last conversations with Emily in their minds, searching for any clue, any hint of what might have happened. But there was nothing. The next few days were a blur of frantic activity. Emily's parents were beside themselves with grief and fear. They plastered missing posters all over town, offering a reward for any information. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers joined in the search, scouring the streets, parks, and woods around the town. The police questioned everyone who knew Emily, her teachers, her classmates, her friends, even the cute boy from math class. But no one had seen anything, no one knew anything. It was as if Emily had simply vanished in a thin air. The once peaceful town was now gripped by fear and suspicion. Doors were locked, children were kept inside, and the carefree atmosphere was replaced by a heavy cloud of anxiety. Emily's disappearance had shattered the illusion of safety and security, leaving everyone wondering what had happened to the bright, happy girl who had brought so much joy to their lives. The joy was replaced by the unknown, and the secret Emily held close was now buried with her disappearance. The search for Emily became the biggest thing anyone in the small town had ever seen. The police brought in search dogs, helicopters buzzed overhead, and volunteers combed through every inch of the surrounding area. They looked in the woods, along the river, and even in abandoned buildings. Posters with Emily's smiling face were plastered everywhere, on telephone poles, store windows, and even car bumpers. The local newspaper ran the story on the front page every day, and national news channels picked up the story as well. Emily's disappearance became a national mystery. Reporters swarmed the town, interviewing Emily's family, her friends, and anyone who might have a clue. The attention was overwhelming, but Mr. and Mrs. Carter were willing to do anything to bring their daughter home. They made tearful pleas on television, begging for anyone with information to come forward. "Please," Mrs. Carter sobbed during one interview. "If you know anything, please tell us. We just want our daughter back." The police followed up on every lead, no matter how small. They searched Emily's computer and phone records, hoping to find some clue about her secret or where she might have gone. They interviewed known criminals and sex offenders in the area, but nothing turned up. Days turned into weeks, and the search intensified. Volunteers organized massive search parties, dividing the area into grids and systematically searching every square inch. They found lost pets, discarded trash, and even a few forgotten treasures, but they found no sign of Emily. The media coverage was relentless. Experts weighed in on the case, offering theories about what might have happened. Some speculated that Emily had been abducted, while others suggested she had run away. But none of the theories seemed to fit. Emily was a happy, well-adjusted girl with no reason to run away. Despite the massive search efforts and the intense media coverage, no solid leads ever surfaced. The police were stumped, the volunteers were exhausted, and Emily's family was losing hope. The initial flurry of activity slowly began to die down, replaced by a gnawing sense of despair. It was as if Emily had simply vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind only a mystery and a broken-hearted family. The secret Emily held remained locked away with her. The years drifted by, each one heavier than the last. The missing posters, once bright and new, faded and peeled, becoming just another part of the town's landscape. The news stories stopped, the reporters moved on, and the world seemed to forget about Emily. But her family never did. Mr. and Mrs. Carter lived in a perpetual state of grief, their hearts aching with the absence of their daughter. They kept Emily's room exactly as she had left it, a shrine to a life that had been cut short. Her drawings still adorned the walls, her clothes still hung in the closet, and her favorite books still sat on the shelf. Every year on Emily's birthday, they would bake her favorite cake and invite her friends over to share memories. Sarah and Jessica, now young women, always attended, their eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and love. They would tell stories about Emily, remembering her laughter, her kindness, and her infectious spirit. The town slowly began to heal, but the scar of Emily's disappearance remained. People moved on with their lives, got married, had children, and built new memories. But every now and then, someone would mention Emily's name, and a shadow would fall over the conversation. The old department store, the one Emily was supposed to pass on her way to the mall, closed down a few years after she disappeared. People said it was bad luck, that Emily's ghost haunted the building. It sat empty and abandoned, a silent reminder of the tragedy that had befallen the town. Mr. and Mrs. Carter never gave up hope. They hired private investigators, consulted psychics, and even traveled to other states to follow up on potential leads. They spent countless hours searching online databases, hoping to find some trace of their daughter. "We'll never stop looking for her," Mr. Carter would say, his voice filled with determination. "We owe it to Emily to find out what happened to her." Even as the years turned into a decade, they held on to the belief that one day, Emily would come home. They imagined her walking through the door, her bright green eyes sparkling, her smile lighting up the room once again. It was a hope that kept them going, a flicker of light in the darkness of their grief. The secret Emily held waited to be revealed. 15 years after Emily's disappearance, The old department store was finally being renovated. A new company had bought the building, planning to turn it into a modern shopping center. Workers arrived, ready to tear down the old walls and build something new. One afternoon, a construction worker named Mark was working in what used to be a storage room in the back of the store. He was using a sledgehammer to knock down a wall when he noticed something strange. The wall sounded hollow in one particular spot. Curious, Mark hit the wall harder, and a chunk of plaster crumbled away, revealing a dark space behind it. He called over his supervisor, Tom, and together they examined the wall more closely. It looked like it had been deliberately sealed off, the bricks mortared together with extra care. "That's weird," Tom said, scratching his head. "I don't remember seeing anything about this on the blueprints." They decided to investigate further. Using their tools, they carefully chipped away at the wall, creating a small opening. Peering inside, they saw only darkness. Tom grabbed a flashlight from his toolbox and shone it into the hidden space. The beam of light illuminated a small, dusty room. It was filled with old boxes and discarded furniture, but something else caught their eye. In the corner of the room, they saw a stack of personal items. "What is all this stuff?" Mark wondered aloud. They carefully climbed through the opening and into the hidden room. As they started to sift through the items, a chill ran down their spines. They found old school books, a faded backpack, and a few articles of clothing. And then they found something that made their hearts stop. It was a photograph tucked away in a small box. The photograph was old and faded, but they could still make out the image. It was a picture of a young girl standing in what looked like the department store. The girl had long, wavy brown hair and bright green eyes. Mark and Tom exchanged a look of stunned realization. They knew who the girl in the photograph was. It was Emily Carter, the girl who had disappeared 15 years ago. The secret Emily held was about to be revealed after all. The air in the hidden room was thick with dust and the scent of old paper. Mark and Tom carefully examined the items, their hearts pounding with a mixture of excitement and dread. There was Emily's backpack, a bright purple JanSport that she had carried to school every day. It was faded and worn, but they could still see the colorful patches she had sewn onto it. A rainbow, a peace sign, and a picture of her favorite band. Inside the backpack, they found Emily's school books, her notebooks, and a few pens and pencils. The notebooks were filled with her handwriting, a mix of neat notes and doodles. There were drawings of flowers, animals, and portraits of her friends. They also found a small photo album, its cover adorned with glitter and stickers. Inside, there were pictures of Emily with her family and friends, laughing and smiling. There were pictures of her at school dances, birthday parties, and summer vacations. Each photo seemed to capture a moment of joy and happiness, a stark contrast to the tragic mystery of her disappearance. But the most intriguing item was a small, leather-bound diary. It was locked with a tiny brass padlock, its pages yellowed with age. The diary felt heavy in their hands, as if it held the key to unlocking the secrets of Emily's disappearance. As they looked around the room, Mark and Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were intruding on something sacred. The room felt like a time capsule, preserving a snapshot of Emily's life before it was so abruptly cut short. The presence of Emily's belongings in this hidden room raised so many questions. Why were they hidden away like this? Who had sealed off the room? And what had happened to Emily? The atmosphere in the room was thick with mystery and sadness. It was as if Emily's spirit was still present, watching them, waiting for them to uncover the truth. Mark and Tom knew that they had stumbled upon something significant, something that could finally bring closure to Emily's family and solve the mystery of her disappearance. The secret Emily held was within these walls. Mark and Tom knew they had to open the diary. It felt like the most important clue they had. They carefully broke the tiny padlock and opened the diary. The pages were filled with Emily's handwriting, neat and girlish. As they began to read, they quickly realized that Emily had been hiding something. The diary entries revealed a growing sense of unease and fear in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. July 12th, one entry read, "I saw something strange at the park today. A man was acting weird, watching the kids play. He gave me a creepy feeling. July 20th, another entry said, I think someone is following me. I keep seeing the same car parked down the street. It's a dark blue sedan, and it always seems to be there when I walk home from school. The entries became increasingly alarming. Emily wrote about feeling watched, about hearing strange noises outside her window at night, and about receiving anonymous notes with threatening messages. August 1st, one entry read, I got another note today. It said, I know your secret. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. Mark and Tom exchanged worried glances. It was clear that Emily had been in danger, that someone had been threatening her. But who? And what was the secret that she was so afraid of revealing? As they continued to read, they discovered that Emily had witnessed something she shouldn't have. She had seen a group of men meeting in the woods near her house, exchanging packages and talking in hushed tones. She didn't know what they were doing, but she knew it wasn't good. August 5th, one entry read, I saw them again tonight. They were carrying guns. I think they saw me. I have to tell someone, but I'm afraid of what they might do. The final entry was dated August 7th, just 2 days before Emily disappeared. It was short and frantic. I'm in trouble, she wrote. They know I saw them. I have to hide. I'm going to the old department store. It's the only place I can think of where they won't find me. Mark and Tom stared at each other in disbelief. Emily had been hiding in the department store, trying to escape from someone who was threatening her. But who were these men? And why did they want to silence her? The secret Emily held was now bringing forth new questions. After reading the diary, Mark remembered the photograph they had found earlier. He picked it up and examined it more closely. It was a Polaroid, its colors faded and blurry, but still discernible. Emily was standing in what looked like one of the department store's old display windows. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear. She looked like a cornered animal, desperate to escape. But it was what was in the background of the photograph that sent a shiver down Mark's spine. Lurking in the shadows, just behind Emily, was a figure. It was difficult to make out any details, but it was clearly a person. They were partially obscured by a rack of clothing, but Mark could see a dark shape, a pair of eyes glinting in the dim light. The figure seemed to be watching Emily, stalking her like a predator. It was a chilling image, a snapshot of Emily's last moments before she disappeared. Mark showed the photograph to Tom, who gasped. Oh my gosh, he said. That's terrifying. They realized that the photograph was taken inside the department store, likely just before Emily hid in the secret room. It was a visual confirmation of her diary entry, a haunting glimpse into the danger she had been facing. The photograph raised even more questions. Who was the figure lurking in the background? Was it one of the men she had seen in the woods? And what had happened to her after the photograph was taken? Mark and Tom knew they had to take their discovery to the police. This photograph, combined with Emily's diary, could be the key to solving the mystery of her disappearance. It was a chilling piece of evidence, a silent scream frozen in time. The secret Emily held was now visible for all to see. Mark and Tom immediately called the police, their voices trembling with excitement and nervousness. Within hours, the old department store was swarming with officers, detectives, and forensic experts. The hidden room was treated as a crime scene. Every item was carefully cataloged and collected as evidence. The walls were dusted for fingerprints, and the floor was searched for any trace of Emily's DNA. The police were stunned by the discovery. After 15 years of dead ends and false leads, they finally had a break in the case. Emily's diary and the chilling photograph provided new insights in her disappearance, suggesting that she had been the victim of foul play. The case was officially reopened, and a new investigation was launched. Detectives interviewed Mark and Tom, piecing together the details of their discovery. They also contacted Emily's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, to deliver the news. The news of the discovery spread quickly through the town. People were shocked and saddened to learn that Emily's belongings had been hidden away in the department store all along. The discovery brought back painful memories of the day she disappeared, the frantic search efforts, and the years of uncertainty and grief. Sarah and Jessica, Emily's best friends, were devastated by the news. They had always hoped that Emily was still alive, that one day she would return home. But the discovery of her diary and photograph in the hidden room shattered that hope. The town was once again gripped by fear and suspicion. People started to wonder who could have been responsible for Emily's disappearance, who could have hidden her belongings in the department store, and who could have kept the secret for so long. The police promised to do everything in their power to find the truth and bring Emily's killer to justice. They vowed to leave no stone unturned, to interview every person who had been connected to the case, and to follow up on every lead, no matter how small. The discovery had reopened old wounds, but it had also ignited a new sense of determination and hope. The town was united in its desire to find out what had happened to Emily and to bring closure to her family and friends. The secret Emily held was about to be unveiled. The police investigation focused intensely on the old department store. Detectives pored over old blueprints, tried to understand the layout of the building and how the hidden room could have been constructed without anyone noticing. They interviewed former employees, managers, and security guards who had worked at the store in 2008, hoping to find someone who knew something about Emily's disappearance or the hidden room. Many of the former employees were difficult to track down. Some had moved away, some had changed their names, and some had even passed away. But the detectives were determined to find everyone they could. They interviewed Mrs. Gable, who had worked as a sales clerk in the women's clothing department. She remembered Emily as a sweet, polite girl who often came into the store with her friends. She didn't recall seeing anything suspicious in the days leading up to Emily's disappearance, but she did remember a few strange incidents. "There was this one time," Mrs. Gable said, "when I saw a man arguing with Mr. Henderson, the store manager. He seemed really angry, and he was yelling about money. I didn't hear what they were saying, but it made me feel uncomfortable." The detectives also interviewed Mr. Peterson, who had been the store's security guard. He remembered seeing Emily in the store on the day she disappeared, but he said she seemed fine. He also said that he hadn't noticed anything unusual or suspicious. "I used to make rounds through the store every hour," Mr. Peterson said. "I checked all the doors and windows to make sure everything was secure. I never saw anyone lurking around or acting strangely." The detectives also interviewed Mr. Henderson, the former store manager. He denied having any knowledge of Emily's disappearance or the hidden room. He claimed that he hadn't seen Emily in the store on the day she disappeared and that he didn't know anything about the men she had seen in the woods. "I'm sorry about what happened to Emily," Mr. Henderson said. "It was a terrible tragedy, but I had nothing to do with it." Despite their interviews, the detectives were unable to find any solid leads. No one seemed to know anything about Emily's disappearance or the hidden room. It was as if the department store was a fortress of secrets, protecting a dark and terrible truth. The secret Emily held was locked within the store's walls. As the detectives dug deeper into the case, they began to uncover a web of secrets and lies that had been hidden for years. It became clear that someone in the town knew more about Emily's disappearance than they were letting on. They started by re-interviewing some of the people they had spoken to earlier, focusing on inconsistencies in their stories. Mrs. Gable, the sales clerk, was asked again about the argument she had witnessed between the store manager, Mr. Henderson, and the angry man. This time, she remembered a few more details. "I think I heard the man say something about a debt," Mrs. Gable said. "He said that Mr. Henderson owed him money and that he was going to get it one way or another." The detectives also learned that Mr. Henderson had been in financial trouble in 2008. The department store was struggling, and he had taken out several loans to keep it afloat. He was also known to have a gambling problem. Meanwhile, other detectives were looking into the men Emily had seen in the woods. They discovered that a local gang had been using the woods as a meeting place for drug deals. The gang was known for its violent behavior, and it was possible that Emily had stumbled upon one of their operations. The police started to suspect that Emily's disappearance was connected to either Mr. Henderson's financial troubles or the local gang's drug deals. It was possible that she had witnessed something she shouldn't have, and that someone had silenced her to protect their secrets. The detectives also learned that the hidden room in the department store had been built sometime in the 1970s, during a major renovation of the building. The blueprints showed that the room was originally intended to be a storage space, but it had been sealed off shortly after it was built. The construction workers who had worked on the renovation were long gone, but the detectives managed to track down one of the foremen. The foreman remembered the hidden room, but he didn't know why it had been sealed off. "I just did what I was told," the foreman said. "Mr. Henderson told me to seal off the room, and I didn't ask any questions." The detectives were convinced that Mr. Henderson was involved in Emily's disappearance, but they needed more evidence to prove it. The secret Emily held was about to implicate more than one person. With the investigation gaining momentum, several potential suspects emerged, each with their own possible motives and connections to Emily's disappearance. First, there was Mr. Henderson, the former department store manager. He was in deep financial trouble in 2008, and he had a history of gambling. He had also ordered the hidden room to be sealed off, and he had lied to the police about seeing Emily in the store on the day she disappeared. He was definitely a person of interest. Then there was Mr. Jenkins, a disgruntled former employee of the department store. He had been fired by Mr. Henderson a few months before Emily disappeared, and he had reportedly made threats against the manager. He claimed he was innocent, but he had a history of anger issues and a possible motive for revenge. The detectives also looked into Mr. Abernathy, a creepy neighbor who lived down the street from Emily. He was known for being a loner, and he had a reputation for being a bit odd. Some of the neighborhood kids had said that he would stare at them from his window, and Emily had reportedly complained about him to her friends. Finally, there was David, a classmate of Emily's from school. He had always had a crush on Emily, but she had never reciprocated his feelings. He was known for being jealous and possessive, and he had reportedly been angry when Emily started dating another boy. The police interviewed each of these suspects, carefully questioning them about their whereabouts on the day Emily disappeared and about their possible connections to the crime. Each suspect had an alibi, but the detectives weren't convinced that any of them were telling the truth. The secret Emily held was about to be exposed by one of them. The detectives decided to focus their investigation on Mr. Henderson and Mr. Jenkins, as they seemed to have the strongest motives and the clearest connections to the department store. They began to dig deeper into their backgrounds, looking for any evidence that could link them to Emily's disappearance. The list of suspects was getting longer, and the web of secrets was getting thicker. The detectives meticulously reviewed all the evidence, searching for connections between the diary entries, the chilling photograph, and the suspects. They started to see the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. They realized that the figure lurking in the background of the photograph bore a striking resemblance to Mr. Jenkins, the disgruntled former employee. The figure was wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap, just like Mr. Jenkins often did. The detectives also discovered that Mr. Jenkins had been seen near the department store on the day Emily disappeared. A neighbor had reported seeing a man matching Mr. Jenkins' description walking around the building in the afternoon. Furthermore, the detectives found evidence that Mr. Jenkins had been involved with a local gang that Emily had seen in the woods. He had been arrested for drug possession in the past, and he was known to associate with some of the gang members. The detectives believed that Mr. Jenkins had been using his connection to the gang to pressure Mr. Henderson, the store manager, for money. He had learned about Mr. Henderson's financial troubles, and he had threatened to expose his gambling problem if he didn't pay up. Emily had unwittingly stumbled upon their scheme, and she had witnessed Mr. Jenkins meeting with the gang members in the woods. She had written about it in her diary, and she had taken the photograph in the department store, capturing Mr. Jenkins lurking in the shadows. Mr. Jenkins knew that Emily had seen too much, and he was afraid that she would tell the police. He had followed her to the department store, intending to silence her permanently. The secret Emily held was about to cost him everything. The detectives had finally connected the dots. They had a suspect, a motive, and a mountain of evidence. It was time to bring Mr. Jenkins in for questioning. The clues aligned, and the truth was about to be revealed. The detectives arrived at Mr. Jenkins' small, run-down apartment early in the morning. They knocked on the door, announcing themselves as police officers. Mr. Jenkins opened the door, his eyes wide with surprise and fear. "Mr. Jenkins, we need you to come down to the station with us," one of the detectives said. "We have some questions we need to ask you about Emily Carter." Mr. Jenkins denied knowing anything about Emily's disappearance, but the detectives could see that he was nervous. His hand was shaking, and he was sweating profusely. At the police station, the detectives began to interrogate Mr. Jenkins. They presented him with the evidence they had gathered: the photograph, the neighbor's statement, and his connection to the local gang. Mr. Jenkins continued to deny any involvement in Emily's disappearance, but his story kept changing. He claimed that he hadn't been near the department store on the day Emily disappeared, but then he admitted that he had been in the area, but only to visit a friend. The detectives pressed him harder, pointing out the inconsistencies in his story and confronting him with the evidence. Finally, Mr. Jenkins cracked. Okay, he said, his voice trembling. I was there. I saw her. He confessed that he had been at the department store on the day Emily disappeared, and that he had seen her inside. He claimed that he had only been there to talk to Mr. Henderson, but the detectives didn't believe him. What did you do to her, Mr. Jenkins? One of the detectives asked. Where is Emily? Mr. Jenkins hesitated for a moment, his eyes filled with tears. Then he broke down completely. I didn't mean to hurt her, he sobbed. It was an accident. He confessed that he had confronted Emily in the department store, demanding that she hand over her diary and the photograph. She had refused, and they had struggled. In the heat of the moment, he had pushed her, and she had fallen and hit her head. He had panicked, and he had hidden her body in the hidden room, sealing it off to prevent anyone from finding her. The secret Emily held was now out in the open. The detectives were stunned by his confession. After 15 years, they finally knew what had happened to Emily. It was a tragic end to a long and heartbreaking story. The confrontation ended, but the story of Emily was far from over. The truth about Emily's disappearance was finally revealed. Mr. Jenkins, driven by greed and desperation, had been extorting money from Mr. Henderson, the department store manager, using his connections to a local gang. Emily had inadvertently stumbled upon their scheme, witnessing their meetings in the woods and capturing Mr. Jenkins' lurking presence in the department store with her camera. Afraid that she would expose them, Mr. Jenkins confronted Emily in the department store, demanding her diary and the photograph. When she refused, a struggle ensued, resulting in Emily's accidental death. Panicked and desperate to cover up his crime, Mr. Jenkins hid Emily's body in the hidden room, a forgotten space that had been sealed off during a renovation decades ago. He knew about the room because he had worked at the store for many years and had learned its secrets. He sealed the room off to prevent anyone from finding her, hoping that her disappearance would remain a mystery forever. He had gotten away with it for 15 years, but the truth had finally caught up with him. The secret Emily held was finally brought to light. The police recovered Emily's remains from the hidden room, bringing closure to her family and friends after so many years of uncertainty. Mr. Jenkins was arrested and charged with murder, facing the consequences of his actions. The town was shocked by the revelation, but also relieved that the mystery had finally been solved. They mourned the loss of Emily, a bright and promising young woman whose life had been tragically cut short. The town grieved, but also found solace in knowing the truth. Emily's secret was no longer a burden. It was now a story, a memory, and a warning. Mr. Jenkins' trial was a somber affair, the courtroom packed with Emily's family, friends, and members of the community. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His confession, the photograph, the neighbor's testimony, and his connection to the local gang. The prosecution painted a picture of Mr. Jenkins as a greedy and desperate man who was willing to do anything to protect his secrets. The defense argued that Emily's death was an accident, and that Mr. Jenkins had only been trying to protect himself. After days of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. They found Mr. Jenkins guilty of manslaughter, acknowledging that Emily's death was not premeditated, but that Mr. Jenkins was still responsible for her tragic demise. Mr. Jenkins was sentenced to 20 years in prison, finally facing the consequences of his actions. While it wouldn't bring Emily back, it offered a sense of closure and justice to her family and the town. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Emily's parents, spoke to the media after the trial. They expressed their gratitude to the detectives who had never given up on the case, and to the construction workers who had discovered the hidden room and Emily's belongings. It's been a long and painful 15 years, Mrs. Carter said, her voice filled with emotion. But we finally have some peace knowing that the person who hurt our daughter is being held accountable. The town also felt a sense of relief that the mystery had been solved and that justice had been served. They held a memorial service for Emily, where friends and family shared memories of her life and her infectious spirit. They remembered her bright smile, her love of art, and her kind heart. A local artist created a mural in Emily's honor, depicting her smiling face surrounded by colorful flowers and whimsical creatures. The mural was placed on a wall near the old department store, a permanent reminder of Emily's life and a symbol of hope for the future. Sarah and Jessica, Emily's best friends, established a scholarship fund in her name to help aspiring young artists pursue their dreams. They wanted to ensure that Emily's legacy would live on, inspiring others to follow their passions and make a positive impact on the world. Every year, on the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, the town held a moment of silence to remember her. People gathered at the park near the spot where Emily had last been seen, and they stood in silence, reflecting on her life and the tragic circumstances of her death. Mr. and Mrs. Carter found solace in knowing that their daughter was finally at peace. They visited her grave often, bringing flowers and sharing stories about their lives. They never forgot her, and they always cherished the memories they had of her. Emily's story served as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. Her life, though tragically short, had touched so many people, and her memory would continue to inspire them for years to come. The old department store was eventually torn down, replaced by a new community center. The center included an art studio named after Emily, a place where young people could express their creativity and find their own voices. Emily may have been gone, but she was never forgotten. Her spirit lived on in the hearts of those who knew and loved her, and her story served as a testament to the power of hope, the importance of justice, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And though her secret led to her demise, her memory lived on.